Hi, Kaina. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Caitlin. Thanks for sending that link.
No problem.
Hey, Tyler.
We're just gonna wait a few more minutes, but I think we can get started here shortly.
Okay, I'm driving to Jeff City, so I'm gonna probably take my picture off and focus on the road.
No problem. Right. If we want to go ahead and get started, I can keep adding people in as they join. But thank you all so much for being a part of this training today, and for adopting a legislator. That's definitely a next step in advocacy, that we ask our advocates to take. And so we really appreciate your participation in that program. And this is one of the new ways that we are kind of engaging that group, and looking to build it even stronger moving forward for the remainder of session and future sessions. So, through our partnership with 4A Arts, we have a training today, that's going to go over some budget updates since the Senate Appropriations Committee met last week, and then also a training for storytelling for arts advocacy that our partners with 4A Arts are going to present for us. So if we want to kick it over to Kaina, she can give some updated budget items, um, that we have.
Sure. Sure. So thanks everybody for jumping on. Actually, Caitlin, can we have everybody introduce themselves before we take off?
Yeah, that sounds
Um,
great.
because there's a couple on the call I'm not familiar with.
Definitely, yes. I'm letting a few more people in right now as well. So we can get started by just introducing. You will have to unmute yourself just so you know. And if you don't mind remuting after you introduce yourself, that would be great. So I'm Caitlin Davis. I am the MCA Marketing and Events Coordinator. So I plan our advocacy efforts and do all of our social media. Why don't we kick it over to Javier so he can introduce himself too?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Davir Rodriguez, he, him pronouns, and Boy Arts, the organizing manager, and I'm going to be facilitating the second section today, which is a storytelling workshop. Excited to be here with you all.
Great.
Right. Yes. Um, Dan Cooper, do you want to introduce yourself next? Your next person on the list?
Back to Dan.
Yeah, we can come back. Tyler, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Tyler McKenzie. I am the manager of volunteer engagement at Opera Theater of St. Louis.
Nice. Thank you for joining us. All right. For those who are just joining, we are just introducing ourselves, since we have a small group here before we get into the budget updates. Tiffany, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Tiffany Jonkowski. I am the interim director at the Arts Council of Southeast Missouri.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself next?
You bet. Hi, I'm Sarah Catlin. I'm the executive director at Access Arts School of Service in Columbia, Missouri. We do a lot of clay and a lot of weaving, ages 1 through adults.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us today. And then, if Dan is not able to jump off mute, then Gavin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Gavin Lodge. I'm the Executive Director of 4A Arts, and we have been partnering with Missouri Citizens for the Arts, trying to help build out capacity in grassroots organizing. So I'm thrilled to be here and playing second fiddle to Davier, just in case. Thanks.
Perfect. All right, we can kick it back over to you, Kaina, for
Okay.
some updates.
Thanks, you guys, for being on. Yeah, so the Senate Appropriations Committee met last week and finished markup of the budget. It is going to the full Senate tomorrow to be finalized before going back to the House. In the House, we were able to get nearly $1 million restored out of the $3.5 million cut that the governor recommended to the Missouri Arts Council. So we were disappointed that they didn't add more money to the budget in the Senate, but we were also relieved that they didn't take that $1 million away that we had made up in the House. So we will not have to go to conference. It looks like that the state's going to end up funding MAC at $7.2 million. But we also need to stay on the governor so he doesn't veto that $1 million when the budget gets back to him in May. So that's kind of an update on where we are with the Missouri Arts Council funding right now. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
And I know we noted too that the Senate recommended the same House funding for the Missouri Fine Arts and Scholars Academies too. So that was $675,000.
Right. That's $175,000 less than the governor recommended at $850,000, which was our core. So unfortunately, we're looking to the universities to make up that funding for them. So it's a tight budget year, lots of cuts. They cut about $1 billion out of the budget overall. So trying to find other places to take money from to make up those cuts was very difficult since everybody was getting cut. But all the more reason why we need the advocacy training, so we'll be stronger next year.
That's right.
Coming back to fight for them. So kick it off back to you, Caitlin.
Great, thank you. If nobody has any questions regarding the budget update, then we can kind of go into our training. You can feel free to add questions to the chat as we go, and then I can bring those up as they come. All right, Dabir, can you unmute?
There we go. It would be helpful if you guys can actually hear me, right? Yeah, I was just saying, thank you, Caitlin and Kaina, for those important updates. If I can just, I'm gonna come back really quick and just give you all an agenda of today so you know what we're gonna be doing for the rest of the time here. So those budget updates were really important, and I want you all to kind of keep those in mind as you are thinking about today's workshop. We're going to be moving next into storytelling, and I'm not sure if you all have ever thought about the storytelling as in regards to like arts advocacy or organizing at a community level, but that's what we're going to be doing today. And we're going to start with kind of the why to better understand what's so important about stories and advocacy. And then going to give you a brief background on how storytelling has been an effective tool for organizing in our country. Now we're going to move into some kind of tips and tricks for what makes a powerful story when advocating. And you're going to actually get a chance today to craft an art story that you can have in your back pocket when talking to legislators, donors, community leaders, and also just online. If you ever want to share your story in social media, as we know, advocacy, kind of in government is one thing, but a lot of you are also dealing with donors and other spaces where your stories are also going to be very effective in ensuring that you can secure vital funding for the arts. So let's just kind of begin with the why, which I think is important. So and also if I don't think I said this before, but this will be fairly interactive. So be ready to kind of chat in the chat box. I might be asking you all some questions because kind of boring if you just hear me the whole time. So, in your chat box, I want you to share one word that describes what the arts mean to you. And I know we have some folks that are coming in new. But I see folks, welcome. Excited to have you all. So, we're going to be answering this question now. You can drop it in the chat box. One word that describes what the arts mean to you. Okay. Seeing some really good ones here. Expression, community, therapeutic, humanity, joy. Yeah, yeah, you can do more than one. It's no problem. Um, okay, enjoy. Yep. Um, excellent. I want you all to keep in mind, um, kind of the impact, the meaning of the arts in your lives, because this is going to be the kind of the core to sharing stories with folks. So I'll kind of share a little bit. I'll start off with kind of sharing a little bit my story in connection to the arts. So all throughout elementary and middle school, I really struggled with bullying. So I was considered too fat, too femme, too weird. And I was really aware of this, every day that I went to school. And then I walked into my seventh grade drama class taught by Miss Steele. She looked at a room full of like awkward middle schoolers, and she really told us that our weirdness was an asset. And I could feel that she meant it through the way that she taught. That class gave me something that I didn't have anywhere else. So it gave me permission to be exactly who I was. It gave me the courage to come out. And at a time when I wasn't genuinely sure I deserved even to like love myself, drama class really helped me decide that I did. And to me, that's not a small thing. That's literally everything, especially when you're a teenager. And so I am here today because my school had that class, and because someone decided to fund it. And that's why I not only care about the arts, but I also care about arts advocacy. So let's talk a little bit further about kind of why storytelling specifically. Um, Not all information is created equal as far as our brains are concerned. I'm gonna give you a little lesson on like reflecting on like psychology and biology. So what happens with facts? When we receive facts, when we hear facts and data, only the language processing areas of the brain activate. So we decode the words and then we kind of like move on. So it's much more transactional. Essentially, information is received, some of it is filed, and most of it is then kind of pushed out and forgotten. Now, with stories, when we hear a story, the brain lights up as if we're living the experience ourselves. So, some of you might know this. It's called neural coupling. Essentially, the listener's brain begins to sync with the storyteller's brain. Multiple regions activate simultaneously. So, like our sensory cortex, our motor cortex, our emotional centers of the brain. So, for example, like if someone describes the smell of a coffee shop, our olfactory cortex actually fires in our brain. If they describe a tense confrontation, we actually begin to feel our fight or flight response activate. Um, and then there's also two very important neurochemicals that are involved in this process. So, cortisol is released during tense or urgent moments in a story. And cortisol actually helps to focus and make us pay attention. This release. And then oxytocin, which is also sometimes called like the empathy chemical, it's released when we feel connection to a character. So it's a chemical associated with trust, generosity, motivation to act. Um, And researcher Paul Zak, if you're interested in this, found that people who experienced oxytocin release after hearing a story were significantly more likely to donate money or take an action afterwards. And so essentially, what happens here is that the brain hears a story, right? People remember the story and feel it more, and this actually stories drive movements essentially. So might be shooting a lot of information at you, but if there's one thing that I hope that you all walk away from today remembering, it's this. Okay. Facts tell a legislator what a problem is, but stories make them feel the problem. Oxytocin makes them want to do something about it. Okay, it motivates people. And so the best advocates learn to communicate effectively, basically the way our brains are wired to help folks understand what the information is at a deeper level, and that helps people to move toward action. So, kind of a little brief history on storytelling and organizing. One thing to be clear is that storytelling, well, it's actually the oldest organizing tool, but it isn't a communication tactic that we invented for advocacy. Storytelling, as we may know, is literally how humans have organized societies since the dawn of time, right? Before written language, communities pass down values, laws, and collective identity through shared values, like who we are, what we believe, what we protect. All of this traveled through narrative, right? Often before language was even written. Every social movement has also understood this intuitively. So things like the labor movement, right, used workers' personal testimonies to humanize exploitation that maybe statistics couldn't capture. The civil rights movement was also powered through stories. Um, and so we see time and time again in our country and also in other cultures that storytelling has been used as a form of organizing and advocacy. Before we go into the how, I want to kind of share this framework that's shaped modern organizing specifically. So, Harvard professor Marshall Gans spent years organizing for the farm workers movement before he developed what he called public narrative. Basically, it's three simple ideas. There's the story of self, there's the story of us, and the story of now. So the story of self is basically why you are called to action, why you are called to the movement, right? So it's experience or movement that makes, in this case, arts personal for you. The story of us is why, we're called together. Like, what do we share as a community? Like artifacts, educators, advocates. What makes this like our collective responsibility? And the story of now, that's the urgent call to action. That's where, like, what's at stake right now? What happens if we stay silent? What happens if we don't stay silent? And here's the important insight that matters that people don't realize. Most people, most advocates, they skip straight to the now, right? So here's a problem. Here's what we need. Um, Art is important. Please fund it. Don't cut it, right? Like we just skip straight to the now without actually explaining why they personally care. Um, and you skip kind of this story of self and us. Your ask can feel just like a transaction or like a demand even, and that can create a rift. Um, but when you start with story, you're basically inviting that person. So you're inviting legislators into the movement. You're helping them feel the consequences of what no arts or what funding cuts would look like, even relating it to maybe their own life. And so kind of that's what we're building today, right? Helping all of us create personal art stories that can be an entry point, right, into arts advocacy at a deeper level. So let me give you just some examples of this to kind of help it come to life. Okay. So for the civil rights movement, so Emmett Till, as many of you all might know if you know some American history, he was an African American boy essentially who at 14 years old was abducted and lynched in Mississippi in I believe 1955. after being basically accused of offending a white woman, Carolyn Bryant. And I think it was in her family's grocery store. And so he was lynched, beaten brutally, and his mom, Mammy Till Mobley, essentially made a deliberate choice, and she's like, "I want the world to see what happened to my boy," and chose to do an open casket. This like was really shocking. It was very gruesome to see. And it kind of made headlines. A lot of different newspapers and news sources kind of published on this. Um, and so basically, we can imagine how like this powerful story, right, really helped to be one of the pushes, right, for the Civil Rights Act to eventually be passed. Um, Another one was same-sex marriage, and so essentially, early on, it was much more powered by like kind of lawyers, and it was a lot more like legal and like organizations really leading the movement. But basically the Freedom to Marry campaign made a shift and said, hey, let's have ordinary couples share their personal stories. And so they did a collection of stories, and essentially this is what helped to humanize um, the movement. And this was public support basically by the time that same-sex marriage came to be in our country. Public support had flipped from the minority to the majority. Um, and this was the strategy. It was just sharing personal stories. And then another one, Americans with Disabilities Act. Essentially, Jennifer Keelan, at age 8, I don't know if you all have seen this, kind of this image, but essentially, uh, pulled up herself in her wheelchair and up 83 marble steps of the U.S. Capitol, kind of climbed as best as she could and says like, I'll do this on my own to kind of show inaccessibility, right, in our country regarding stairs and other ADA. At that point, there was no ADA, right, but lack of ADA compliance. And Congress just 4 months later essentially passed the ADA. So you can imagine this very visual situation that then was very, very real story told, kind of helped. And so these are just some examples in our country. All right. So now, what makes a good story? We all know we've seen folks, right, that share stories, and some stories were like, wow, really strike us, they really hit us, they sit with us. And others were like, oh man, I struggled to pay attention, or I struggled to really understand the meaning of the story. Because the how is just as important as the what and the why. So one thing to first keep in mind is like, why does the arts matter? This is kind of something we should really understand ourselves. We know that we love the arts. We know how it makes us feel. But thinking like maybe thinking like a legislator, thinking about maybe someone that isn't as connected to the arts. So there's extensive research as well as evidence in our own lives, right, to show that the arts has a profound impact. So here are just kind of some refreshers for us. First is the economic impact. The arts fuels small businesses, tourism, and it creates jobs. So, $15 billion annually in our country, right, go essentially to ha have this economic impact. Health and well-being, right? So we know that it improves mental health and reduces social isolation. Um, so there's like arts programs in Missouri, right? For and like in Missouri, hospitals used to reduce stress, improve recovery, and support mental health outcomes, for example. Also, education in the workforce, right? We know that like low-income students and arts access are significantly more likely to keep students in Missouri in school and help them graduate. And civic and cultural vitality, right? So we know like cultural tourism, things like the arts, heritage, events, festivals, they bring millions of visitors to Missouri annually, right? They support local economies and they also preserve a sense of cultural identity, not only at a state level, but even like in the regions across Missouri. So There's a really good framework that Marshall Gans developed to kind of help us tell our story. And it's a moment, meaning, ask. So, moment, this is what centers the listener. It gives context, right? It kind of offers that hook, like something very visual, very specific. So you want to like name places, particular people, a specific feeling, right? Rather than giving like kind of vague generalities or kind of yeah, generalizing, you kind of bring people to a very specific moment. So for example, here, like I was 14 when my school cut the music program. I remember the day we packed up our instruments. Very specific, very real, very tailored to a moment in time. Then there's the meaning, right? So this is where you connect that moment to something a little bit larger, to the larger community, to the why it matters, right? So like that program kept 60 kids out of trouble. Our music programs in our school district also employed 18 people across our district, right? So this is kind of the larger. It's not just about me and maybe even my school, but the larger picture. And then the last one is the ask. This is critical because this is what links, right? This is what bridges your story, and kind of the why it matters to like the call to action, to why you are sharing this, right? So you end with something concrete. What do you want them to do? Is it a vote? Is it funding a program? Is it a particular meeting? So the example here is I'm asking you to support the arts education line item in this year's budget, right? So for this example, if you see these boxes, this is kind of like the progression of the story. There might be a little bit more details entered here, but this is kind of the core trajectory of this story. Now, some critical tips, and then we'll kind of go into kind of crafting our stories. Here are some really key tips. Keep it brief. Less is more, okay? You want to paint a picture, right? You want to be concise. You don't want to give a lot of details that confuse people or make them kind of struggle with keeping attention. Be specific. So again, paint a picture, help listeners who were not there be able to see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, feel it, whatever it is, the sensories. Also practice your story out loud, right? So we know that like how we deliver it really matters. We don't want to be like I don't know if you all remember the commercials. Maybe I'm dating myself here, like the Clear Eyes guy, right? Who would just kind of talk monotone, everything, and like was like this. Um, you really want to be able to inject life into your story. So practice it. um, Connected to impact, right? So, yes, share your personal story and how it impacts you, but you want to show how it connects to a larger we, because that's what legislators, donors, leaders in the community are thinking. They're often thinking in big picture. Um, and then make know that even if you don't get in front of a legislator when you're talking and advocating, their staff really count, especially legislative aides. Um, they are people who are often in the ears of legislators, and so if you make it compelling and you kind of share with them, they'll pass on the message. And always, again, as end with the ask. If you just go in and just share your story, hey, this is why I care about the arts. The end. It leaves legislators confused. We can kind of empathize, put ourselves in the position of a legislator. They are thinking about so many different bills and laws and parts of their constituencies and all at once. And so you want to make it easy for them. You want to make it clear. Vote for this, fund this. Make it very easy because then they're more likely when they go in, they can literally regurgitate or be able to explain or know what to do that you are asking for them to do. All right. So we're gonna do a little bit of an activity here, and so I'm really excited to hear from you all. Um, And when I hear from you, what I mean here doesn't mean that you're gonna necessarily gonna be speaking, so don't feel afraid. But we're gonna be kind of writing some prompts right now. So what I want you all to do is in your chat box, I'm gonna give you all three questions, and I want you to focus on these questions one at a time. Okay. So take about 3 minutes, and I want you to answer this first question. Okay. When did the arts change something for you or for someone you know? Think about a very specific moment in your life. I'm going to put a little bit of a timer. So 3 minutes, and go ahead and just directly start typing and then send it when you're done. Okay. And friendly reminder, keep it concise. You don't have to write a whole paragraph. One sentence is enough. Two. Great. Seeing some come in. Take about another 40 seconds. I know some folks are still writing. Sarah, that's a really good point. It doesn't have to be life-changing. It could be just a simple moment where you really connected to the arts. It could change something small, or it could just be why it's important to you. It's a really good point. It doesn't always, we don't expect it to be life-changing. Okay, for folks who are finishing up, feel free to wrap up. I'm gonna go ahead. I want to read some of these to you all because they're really good. So Gavin said, at age 8, my father passed away. We were very close. My piano teacher at the time let me know that her grandfather also died when she was 8. So rather than having a lesson a day, we just had a talk. From then on, the piano was a passion for me because of the personal connection we had made, um, that bridged to music. Melissa, I was a sophomore in college, pre-med, and I was not enjoying it. A music professor suggested music education since I was in choir, changed my life and gave me purpose. Tiffany said, when I entered elementary school, I was ostracized by my peers and in general classrooms for having eczema. Taking art classes gave me a voice and a place of belonging I didn't have elsewhere. Yeah, that special connection. Caitlin, growing up in a small rural town, I remember when our local dance studio opened and I was finally able to start dance classes. This completely changed the trajectory of my life and opened up a new form of expression. Yeah, being able to kind of not having it and then this new thing opens up and how it opens up your world. the power of having art present, right? Tyler, the 19-year-old me was in the middle of a 100 plus person chorus and orchestra, unable to read music, celebrating Maestro Bernhardt's retirement, singing Mahler's Second Symphony. Tammy, the first time I heard a piece of Mozart, I was in the second grade. At that point, I knew I had to learn to play the piano. And Sarah, okay. Young kid in the hallway outside my office exclaiming, "This is my first time coming here, and I've already made two friends," right? He was so excited. I like small moment of togetherness. Excellent. Um, okay, so I want you to think about that those moments, right? Whether it was like a very specific moment in time, small, whether it was kind of a period, right? If you were taking classes, whatever that may be. What would have been lost without that? So I want you to try to connect that to your community at large, whether it's your town or your school, or maybe you can connect it to jobs in that area, to health and well-being, um, to kind of cultural development, any of these things. Like what would have been lost had that not happened or had that not been accessible? Again, I'm going to give you about 2.5 minutes to go ahead and write and then submit it in the chat. Mm. Think about another 40 seconds, 45 seconds. Okay. All right, so feel free if you're still writing, you can finish up and send. I just want to start sharing these with you all because they're so good. Um, So Tammy said, if not for the exposure to the arts, I think I would have gone insane, right? And Tammy, I would argue not just you, probably all those right in your school in your community could really suffer, right? Some mental health issues and not having access to a creative outlet. Um, Tiffany said, without the avenue to the arts, many voices and perspectives are lost or not expressed. Students do not have the opportunity to grow the confidence needed to become vocal, creative, and expressive adults who contribute to innovation and connections in society. Yeah, there's just a lot here, like really, really good stuff to unpack, right? We know like things like innovation, right? Having social skills, that's all connected to business as well. Like it's not, it's so rich what you're saying, Tiffany. Um, Caitlin, this allowed for a new community of friends to be formed at the dance studio, economic development from biennial recitals, and training of professional artists. Absolutely. And we know that the arts has a spillover effect. It's not just the actual arts institutions that benefit economically, but the restaurants, the hotels, all the stores, the things that are around an arts event that also benefits. So this is really, really, really true. Um, Sarah said, this story is not unusual. People of all ages find community and connection in the studios. Young people, especially, spend a lot of time on their screens instead of interacting face to face. Yes, we offer a place where they can socialize with their peers away from their phones. Absolutely. Talk about social development at its finest. Melissa said, changing my major to music education allowed me to use my love for the arts to connect to students. I would not have had my career. 33 years teaching music education. I can only imagine, Melissa, the amount of students whose lives you've touched. I have also used my experience to advocate for the arts education throughout my career and during retirement. Tyler said 1,750 people. I love the specificity there. That's amazing. Would not have come together to have that night of raw emotions that kept so many coming back after his retirement. It developed a new audience while maintaining the returning members. Stats and specificity is really powerful when you incorporate a story like that. The very simple but challenging process of performing piano in front of an audience in recitals translated to the bravery it takes to do almost anything in front of a crowd or audience. Public speaking, public performance, these are like among the greatest fears that humans have. And so like the arts directly helps with this. I mean, talk about human development and confidence building at its finest. So um, amazing. Very, very, very strong stories, folks, to be honest. Let's take a little moment at the end. And um, actually, before we do this, I don't know, Kaylin, you're welcome to, I don't mean to put you on the spot. You're welcome to if you want. If not, we can have a more general one. But it's important to think about what we're asking legislators to do. So it could be something official that MCA is asking for in this case, right? Or we can keep it to like thinking about maybe like next year or what you would want to ask, a very specific ask. Um, so yeah, I don't know, Kaylin, if you wanna say like what is one thing that we're asking folks to ask for?
Yes, well, as Kaina mentioned earlier in our budget update, the Senate Appropriations Committee has made their markup of the budget, but that will go to the full Senate this week. So these are stories that you could share with your state senator, today after this meeting, and ask for their support of the Missouri Arts Council because the funding that the Missouri Arts Council gives out filters into a lot of community organizations, a lot of performing arts organizations. There's so many different avenues that that trickles down to in every single Senate district. So the likelihood that they have an impact of from that funding is very high in their district. So I think that would be, a key ask after this meeting.
Perfect. Thanks, Kaylin. So yeah, so it could be as simple and specific as please support the funding for the Missouri Arts Council. And if I know that we had a few updates from Kaina and Kaylin today, so if there's something else additional, more specific that you want to add, you can put your own words in it. At the end of the day, this is you advocating. So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. Go ahead and write it in the chat. What would you ask your legislator to do, like vocalize kind of what your specific ask is to practice this part. Okay, another 30 seconds. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. Could be one simple sentence. Hmm. Okay, last few seconds here. I'm gonna start reading these. Um, so Caitlin wrote, and I think this is really good for you all to kind of have a very like specific, succinct request. I think it's really powerful, right? Like I share my story with you, right? So to please ask you to vote to support funding for the Missouri Arts Council budget at 7.2 million. Um, Sarah, and I want to say this is really good. When you ask, like, will you commit to? There's something really powerful about that phrasing because you're asking for a response from the legislator to commit and to kind of verbalize, and that actually moves into action more. So, will you commit to keeping the arts funded at the current level in the draft budget so that kids like Alex all around in our state can continue to develop into healthy, productive citizens? It's good that you brought it back to a story, right? And kind of say, like, this is the impact. You support this, this is what happens. So that's really, really good. Tyler, I ask that you join us for a night at the opera so you can see the value of funding the arts at the amount that we seek. Tyler, this is really, really good because so this is obviously it's a slightly different request. You're not asking at that moment to support the funding. You're inviting a legislator to an event, which is a really powerful way to one, build relationships, and two, get them to advocate for the arts through their own lived experiences. Really, really good. And this is an effective way of advocating in general, something that is always recommended. Um, uh, Tiffany, I ask that funding for the Missouri Arts Council does not decrease as it provides the opportunity for children to access additional arts programming after school to provide a place of creative thinking and bonding in our community. Again, really, really good. Linking it to them and showing the impact of what that means of what your ask implies or what consequences it has. Melissa, I am asking you to support restoring the Missouri Arts Council funding to 10.1 million for the fiscal year 2027 budget. Investing in the arts is a proven way to strengthen community resilience and yield a higher return on investment for the state. Excellent, very specific. How much money you want it, for what budget you want it, and why it matters. Um, yeah, now I could tell, Sarah. And Tammy, please continue funding for the arts for the community, right? Simple request, but effective. In general, what I would say is your the stuff that you all provided really effective. I hope you can see how this moment meaning ask can be implemented. How you can say if you notice if you put it all together, what you just wrote for you to deliver it is under 2 minutes, which is really important. You don't want to drag on 5 minutes. These minute meetings tend to be short, and attention spans, especially lately, I think, over humans are pretty short. Um, so now what I'm going to ask of maybe a brave volunteer, if you so choose, who wants to get off mute and share their story. So you can put all three of yours together and share it. Or if you feel compelled and brave to kind of give a slightly different story and share it using this the same metric of moment meaning ask. Do we have any brave, brave souls? And one thing I'll say is that this is a very safe space to say it. No, no judgment is actually the place where you can actually practice it and kind of verbalize it in front of a group, in front of people to help you hear yourself and also help you deliver it and practice it. So,
I will.
all
Sarah,
right.
just
Yes,
just to end the
Sarah.
uncomfortable silence, you win. I feel like I had the least compelling story of everyone. I can't believe no one else wanted to go.
Don't shortchange
Okay.
yourself.
All right. Are we ready?
Yes, go for it.
Hey, Representative Rodriguez, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you stepping off the floor to speak with me. I just wanted to share a story of something really cute but also powerful that happened last week. I was sitting in my office working on a grant proposal, and I heard three of our younger students out in the hall because the bathroom is right around the corner from my office, and they're standing there waiting for their turn in the bathroom. And this little boy, Alex, he can't be more than, he's probably a kindergartner. He's a little guy. And I hear him say to an older boy who is maybe a fourth grader, "This is my first day here, and I've already made two friends." And he was so excited. And just, that's just one illustration of how people come to art studios, not just our studio, but studios all around the state, and they find art and they find art education, but what they really find is community and socializing and connection in a way that really, with the screen culture that kids have, especially, is really lost today. And so it's just so important for their social development to have these outlets. And so I'm asking you today if you could commit to supporting the current recommendation of whoever recommended it, of X amount of funding for the arts whenever the draft budget comes up for a vote later today. Yeah, I didn't have my numbers, but you can see
Oh,
where
no, you're
those
good.
go.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. 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 This is really good. So I'll give you, at least for me, like I first of all, I love that you address obviously the representative, right? I think you said Representative Rodriguez
Yes,
by
I just
name,
you.
thank them, like really kind of build that rapport. I could literally see Alex. I could
Yeah,
see like
he was
Alex's
so
little
tiny.
voice, right?
Mhm.
As a child, which is really compelling and really effective in helping to contextualize, to draw an image, to draw emotions.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was really good. It was very clear. I could hear like the moment, and then you translate the meaning, why those interactions matter, and then the very specific ask.
Mhm.
So I thought that was very effective, and it was under 2 minutes, by the way.
Oh, great.
So it was great. I don't know if anyone else has anything else they'd like to
Somebody else
share.
should go now that I broke the seal.
Yeah. Um, so really, really good. Does anyone else want to share or comment? No pressure.
I
Sarah?
just
Oh, go ahead.
wanted to comment. I thought it was really, no, I just want to comment. That's spot
Yeah.
on. That's what we need, more stories like that, and just those personal interactions with the legislators and letting them know what you're doing on the field, how important it is.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
good job, Susan.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Sarah, thank you for being so brave. I know it can feel intimidating in a group of strangers. Um, But if there's one thing that I want you to walk away, folks, is sometimes we feel apprehensive about advocating. We feel like, well, I don't really know what to do or what to say. And what I hope that you all understand is that you already have the most powerful advocacy tool there is, and that is your personal stories, your lived experience, with a little bit of just thinking and refreshing your mind of like, why do I care about the arts? Why does this matter to me? Right? You look more inward, you have what you need to be able to advocate. You don't need fancy statistics and data and policy names and even be super abreast of what's happening. You just need to be able to share your story and ask for support of the arts. Um, so some suggestions here to kind of help you along in your advocacy is recording yourself, literally like put it, put your phone cameras on, record yourself or your audio, and then you can actually hear yourself and adjust. Refine your story. So if you didn't already, because once we get off a Zoom here, like you'll lose your text. So if you didn't already, you can kind of copy paste what you wrote onto some sort of document or something off, so you have your kind of your outline for what you want to say, and keep improving it. Have a couple stories in your back pocket, right? The third one is if you haven't already, sign up for Missouri Citizens for the Arts, right? They have an e-blast that they're always sending out. If you're not a member already, become a member. Um, and then schedule a legislator meeting and send your stories. So um, and also share it online on social media. You can share it directly, and maybe also you can share with MCA, right? If you want to kind of give your story, give a video, and who knows, maybe it can end up in a post somewhere at some point. It could be something that MCA can use as well in advocacy efforts. So I want to thank you all. I want to turn it back over. Caitlin, I don't know if there's anything else you want to share, maybe how folks can connect to legislators, whether it's today or this week, what else they can do to get involved. So thank you all so much for your time, and I'll hand it over to Caitlin.
Yes, thank you so much, Javier, for leading this training. It was so impactful and really crafting our stories, and I'm excited to share mine with my senator later today. But kind of some of the next steps that he mentioned, I will send you guys an email follow-up with the recording, the slides, and then if you didn't see it in our initial email, we came up with a toolkit as well with some of these ideas in there, but also some social media templates that you can have access to kind of share your story with those templates as well. And then we love when you tag us. I love to repost those things. So make sure that you tag us, and we can kind of keep the stories of the arts and the impact that we have growing in our state. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that. And then the last thing is our membership. You can access that online. Our membership is really important to keep kind of at the Capitol for the entire session and advocating for us, and also to put on our Advocacy Week events and different things like this. So we appreciate your membership as well. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, Caitlin. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
All right. Thank you all. Bye.